priorities and all of the giver. Some are like say they're powerful, me no make a bigger. The urgent the promises done and them not deliver. Cut up the youth and rough and it's going in whatever. Member bold money and they lie them. Corruption smell and they pocket them. When police don't have market like Satan out of hell go mash up people start and thief when them sell it on me. What they treat the market man, it on me. What them a treat the cat man, it on me. What they treat the peanut man, it on me. What them a treat the dirt man, it on me.
Corruption is a vile disease that sucks and drains the health out of something good. Corruption in society is an evil moral infection that keeps community in the state of perpetual sickness. Corruption is a moral virus. It's so potent, it leaves its host sick, lethargic, and unable to realize and accomplish all that a well person can. Where corruption thrives, poverty and not prosperity thrives. Wealth is grabbed into the greedy, grubby hands of those who get fat on the toil and labor of good people. Corruption benefits only temporarily those who participate in it. Everyone else is a victim of the theft, the deceit, the dishonesty, and the lies that corruption feeds on. You need to know that a corrupt person is stealing from you. Corruption is filthy work and despicable acts of treachery done under the table and behind closed doors. Corruption is a disgusting shame. Corruption keeps a nation back from true development and from progress. Wise investors steer clear of a corrupt environment. They would rather put their resources into a place where the playing field of opportunity is equal for all and not bent towards feeding the financial lust of corrupt, lying, cheating, thieving politicians and government officials. How many wonderful development projects have been lost because the investors didn't want to do business in a swamp of evil? When those great projects go to another nation or to some other place, we all lose. Believe me when I tell you that corruption steals from you, it steals from all of us. Corruption plunders the nation's wealth. Corrupt people compromise on truth, equity, and fairness, choosing instead to feed off the short-term benefits of crookedness, exploitation, and financial perversion. Corruption is not just a personal matter, it's a culture. It's a way of life, not just for individual people, but for companies, communities, governments, and nations. Corrupt nations, hiding behind large companies, will seek to invest in other weak nations in order to take over the assets of the nation that they've invested into. They will provide financial loans to a nation for the much-needed infrastructure, and they will do it with assets that they provide. They will sign contracts by lining the pockets of rotten government officials who participate in this kind of corruption and are then held hostage by their own deceit and greed. Corruption is nothing less than a form of theft and national robbery. A corrupt person steals from everyone in society.
This is Global TV election campaign coverage. This is Global TV election campaign coverage. This is Global TV election campaign coverage.
Either Dean Jones never listened to Delroy Chuck, or Dr. Chang is right. That we will get into later. But good evening and welcome to what would have been your Drive Time London, but we're doing our series 2024 Jamaica Decide. Thank you and welcome for joining us this evening. Send, call the Holy Father. Send and call the Holy Father. We have some questions to ask the Holy Father, the Archbishop of Jamaica, the representative of the Vatican, the representative of the Holy Roman Empire, Sengokal Archbishop Kenneth Richards. We have some questions. Good evening. Good evening to those on the Twitch, to those on X, to those on Facebook, on YouTube. Good evening and welcome to another of our broadcasts this evening. Thank you all for joining us. It's always lovely to have you here. As usual, let me say my hellos. I'm going to be with you this evening just for half an hour. I need to go and stifle for at least 2 hours. I need to do that. So I will waffle through the few things I need to talk about this evening and then go on and have my cycle. Good evening to Nico and Gray. Don't know where I talk about good evening anyway. All right, Nick Kane. Natalia Freeman, good evening and welcome. Amazing Grace, good evening. Prof. Gorgeous Lady, good evening and welcome. Jason Kane, good evening and welcome. Sharon Powell, Yvonne Johnson, Miranda Murdoch, good evening and welcome. Paula Shelley, Angela 4349, good evening and welcome. Sunshine, good evening and welcome. Michelle Lewis, Wilson Godgift, good evening and welcome. Good evening and welcome to Hero Bottom. Good evening and welcome to Mary Messenger. Ton of Flavor, good evening and welcome. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks to those who've been here this evening. It's always lovely to have your support. Thank you very much for joining us. There is a video going around of a JLP caretaker candidate for the Yalloth division in St. Thomas. Have you seen that video on Facebook where Mr. Jones is assaulting an elder man? Mr. Jones also pulled, let me assume, his licensed firearm coming out thing. Douglas Allen, good evening and welcome. Me not think I could have an illegal gun impulse of brawling in the street. But have you seen the video? Yes, this happened near Marant Bay. Amazing Grace, good evening and welcome. Have you seen the video going around of Mr. Jones? Mr. Jones is the council caretaker for the Yalloth division, my understanding. Have you seen the video? Did you remember about 36 hours ago, Delroy Chuck, let me see if it's in queue here. That's what I attacked him on last night, so it ought to be somewhere in my queue here. Yes. This tyrant. Chuck pleas for civility in local government election campaign. Arlene Foster, good evening and welcome. Chuck plea for civility in election campaign. But also, if Mr. Jones didn't hear well what Chuck said, then maybe we could go on to apply Dr. Chang's research. Is that it? There you are. There you are. Maybe then, Colleen Humphreys, good evening and welcome. Maybe then we could apply Dr. Watson's unpublished research. Debbie Jervis, good evening and welcome. You are over on Facebook. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Good evening. If Dean Jones Didn't hear when Delroy Chuck was asking for civility during this election campaign. Sonia went, good evening. Then maybe we just have to accept that maybe, Yvonne Johnson, good evening, just maybe, then Dr. Chang unpublished research can be applied. Because Dr. Chang said, the reason why we're having problem in solving our interpersonal conflict is because we have a tendency to adopt a schizophrenic attitude in our conflict resolution skills. That's what Dr. Chang says, not me. It is Dr. Chang that says we're hearing voices. It is Dr. Chang, I think it was sometime last week or just over a week ago. It is Dr. Chang that said we are hearing voices when it comes to conflict resolution. Good evening, Carlos. Good evening, and welcome. Good evening, Angela Costley. And most of you here would also be familiar with Jamaican Carlos platform. Jamaican Carlos don't really have a rigid time. So once you subscribe to Jamaican Carlos, you must, this is a must, you must press the notification bell. Because as it drops, Carlos run out an attack. So therefore, you have to make sure your notification is always on when it comes to Carlos platform. Because like some of us who've got rigid time sets, Carlos don't work like that. As it drops, Carlos run out an attack. So you've got to always be on the lookout for when Carlos notification goes out. But in relation to Dean Jones, the council caretaker for Yalas, the JLP council caretaker for Yalas, just in the last 24 hours, Delroy Chuck was asking for civil conduct during the local government election campaign. And Mr. Dean Jones was seen in somewhere in the St. Thomas area, as Amazing Grace said, close to Marant Bay, carrying out an assault. A JLP councillor, caretaker candidate, carrying out an assault on an elderly gentleman. Not only that, Mr. Jones pulled what I'm going to assume his licensed firearm. For anyone who's seen the video, was there such a threat posed to Mr. Jones that warrant the pulling of his firearm? I want to beat and teach. For man, I not see beat and teach. I want them to kidnap, beat and teach. No, sir, from morning, I not see beat and teach. This is not like beat and teach. Beat and teach busy all day. No, sir. So either Mr. Jones never hear when Delroy Chuck, who I'm going to come on to shortly, asks for civil obedience. Civil obedience during the election campaign. But Mr. Jones could be seen in a street brawl. In a street brawl, a councillor that one would want to go to in their division, whatever problem they have. And maybe now they have to go afraid of kick and thump and gun Mr. Jones. Your constituents, Mr. Jones, I forgot that one day if them are going to get kicked, thump, and gonna go drop on them when they have to confront you of issues that you may be failing to do in your division. But rather than resort to a peaceful resolution, Mr. Jones fulfilled Horace Chang research by resorting to adapting a schizophrenic attitude, which would lead him to start hearing voices, wielding fists, flinging foot, and pulling bullets and pulling weapon. So then we can say, based on that, Dr. Chang, not publishing that research, maybe the research was done amongst him and his fellow men. That's why we can't get a publication on Dr. Chang deciding that when it comes to problem solving amongst us as a people, the vice hearing Dr. Chang is what gets in our way. I'm so glad that it's one of your JLP members is the first to really give credence to your unpublished research, Dr. Chang. Well, remember, Choose the Gun, Delroy Chuck and Andrew Holness try to assault our legislative process by wanting to re-legislate the powers of the office of the political ombudsman. But not only that, want to take that independent body, lump it with what should be another independent body, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. A Glean article is saying this morning, Chuck will provide update later today. I haven't seen anything yet, maybe by later this evening. Later today, insiders say ECJ split on proposal. Because we remember, the ECJ chair, Earl Jarrett, as Chuck suggested, Jamaican TV, good evening and welcome. As Chuck suggested, Earl Jarrett agreed to take the portfolio. So let's wait on Delroy Chuck and see what he's going to come with later. Because I'm going to just whisk through these things fast. As I tell you, I need to go and have a cycle. I really feel like that. Oh, Mr. Youngman goes again. 500 acres of land for castor oil bean production. Mr. Green is saying these were farmer sugarcane land, and he's going to use 500 acres of it for castor oil bean production. It is good. Castor oil is a widely used product internationally. And if we could get in the market, that would be good. But, Mr. Green, at this point in time, I would beg you to be more concerned about food security. That is more threatening to the life of our nation and our economy. The more they rat them, we're some up and down in the rice and cornmeal, in the Chinese wholesale, start piling way off. We're going to have to go back, Mr. Green, to our natural produce. We are going to have to back to the mantra, Mr. Green, of eat what you grow and grow what you eat. Because soon and very soon, with that plot of land down there, them are going to walk on piles now everyone away through the drug and food industry. So what if you are concerned, a brilliant man like you, a bright young brain like you, Mr. Green, the buying goat brain, Mr. Green, which doesn't make much sense for such a bright mind. You would expect bright ideas, Mr. Green, to be coming from bright minds. Prioritize food security. Because everybody want to kill way off for that piece of fertile land. That piece of strategically placed land called Jamaica. Sorry. Food security, Mr. Green. Of course, castor oil is quite a huge industry. And while we produce castor bean wildly, castor bean grow wild across Jamaica, or at least across St. Elizabeth when I was growing up. It is a big economy. We must tap into it. But with these expenditure from the agricultural department, invest in food security, Mr. Green. It will benefit us further down the line when they're using all these chemical produced food to destroy us. So if a bright person like you who could be a prospective prime minister in our country, Mr. Green, do the things so that when the time comes, for you throw your hat in the ring and say to Jamaica, choose me to lead your country, you can have a track record, Mr. Green. Or you go bang bang out away, like in a COVID when we couldn't come on veranda and you had a hotel and have fun. But I'm still waiting for you to respond to that interview that I asked for, Mr. Green, and your councillors across the southwest rather, constituency of St. Elizabeth. I'm still looking forward to that. But before I jump into Father Ken, I want to ask a question. Imagine DMG versus NHT. Donna Marigo versus the National Housing Trust. Imagine if Donna Marigo have the budget that the National Housing Trust has. Imagine Donna Marigo has the budget that the National Housing Trust has. Imagine how much Jamaicans' social living standard would have been elevated. Imagine your MPs and councillors across the island use the money disbursed to them from your public budget, whether it be at your division level or at your constituency to the national level. Imagine those money were spent with transparency and accountability. We see Donegal host building program practice. Imagine a person like Donegal having a budget of the National Housing Trust to work with. Let me tell you how government generally should. Patricia Matthews, good evening and welcome. Let me tell you how government, and that was my very thought, Debbie. Donegal would be doing just like Oprah. You get a house, you get a house, you get a house, you get a house, you all get a house. if Donna Marie Gow had the budget that the National Housing Trust has. But what sensible government do when they're appointing people to the Senate, an unelected body, such as the Senate in Jamaica or the House of Lords in Britain? What you do when you're appointing those people, even though there's a lot of corruption in those appointments, because you appoint your friend them into legislative authority, even though them are Baba Bethune and Skilly Duns. But what good government do is people like Donna Marie Gow. You would appoint Donna Marie Gow to the Senate of Jamaica with the responsibility of the house building program under the National Housing Trust. This is how government should appoint people to your Senate. You appoint people with a skill set and proven track record. Therefore, when you appoint that person to your Senate, they come hit the ground running, ready to do their job. Imagine a person like Donna Marie Gow has the budget of the National Housing Trust. We all, in Oprah Winfrey's word, get a house. And that's the question I want to ask on that particular issue this evening. Imagine Donna Marie Gow has a budget of the National Housing Trust to work with. Good evening, Holy Father. Good evening to the Holy Father, the representative of the Vatican and the Holy Roman Empire. Good evening, Father, Archbishop, Holy Father, Archbishop Kenneth Richards. Drop the purse. Holy Father, drop the purse. A lot of people in the Kingston era, particularly the Western Kingston ghettos, would remember who Father Albert is. That white priest from America, Father Albert. A lot of you who would remember who Father Albert is. Good evening to the congregation of Stella Morris. Good evening. Good evening, Stella Morris congregation. Good evening. And good evening to the Holy Father, the Archbishop, Father Kenneth Richards. Drop the purse. Let me remind you who Father Richard is, Father Albert rather is. And this is a report that was done by the young CNN reporter Christina Amanpour.
Touched by an angel in a place where even angels fear to tread.
Father Richard Albert has spent 24 years on the seamy side of paradise, working in some of Jamaica's toughest slums. But he's not exactly what you might expect of a Catholic missionary priest. He's a cigar-chomping, whiskey-drinking, New York City native who works in a world where the most powerful people are gang leaders called Dons, and where he really has to fight to reach the children he's trying to help.
How was the night? You sleep well? You sleep well?
What is a New Yorker, a man from the Bronx, a white priest, doing in this rough black neighborhood, one of the roughest in the world?
I fell in love with the challenge. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the whole thing of making a difference.
Poor me.
In fact, Father Albert made such a big difference that the gang leaders, or Dons, wanted him dead. The schools he had set up in Jamaica's slums were threatening the Don's ability to recruit inner-city children. You have been threatened. I mean, a contract was put out on your own life.
Yes, a few years ago I was dragged out of my truck and told I was, had a gun put next to me and told that I was a CIA man. But thank God it was a bunch of little old ladies who came in and told the boy, don't you trouble him, he's our priest.
That's not normal fare for a priest's life, is it? Why do you stay?
I stay because I think this is where God wants me.
Are you a saint?
No, please don't put that on me, no. No, I'm not Mother Teresa.
You say you're not Mother Teresa. Do you think people would be surprised to know that you enjoy your evening drink, that you like to have a cigar?
No, after 24 years in Jamaica, I think everybody knows I smoke a cigar and have a whiskey. I don't hide it.
This is the kingdom of the Dons. They're leaders of gangs that were formed years ago by Jamaica's political parties in order to deliver votes. But now, people say the Dons have grown into monsters who don't answer to anyone. The police aren't welcome here. In fact, no one dares venture here without the Dons' permission. No one except Father Richard Albert.
Yes, Father. Yes, Father. Well, let me go do my delivery now. I'm on a mission. Make sure no one teaches it. No boy, I'm my father.
In the rough neighborhoods where even the police seldom enter, Father Albert goes armed only with goodwill and a sense of humor.
Morning. Doing your hair? Everybody doing the hair? But what happened to my hair? You can't do my hair?
In Jamaica, everybody has a nickname. Everyone has what we call a pet name. A carpenter might be called Hammer. An electrician might be called Shaka.
And the Monsignor's called Pinkhead.
And I'm called Pinkhead.
For obvious reasons.
Right, exactly.
Do you mind it? Do you mind when they tease you?
No. I'm one of the greatest teasers in the country anyway. No.
I wonder where she was when I was available.
Is this where you expected to end up?
No, I never thought I'd be a missionary.
That was when? How old were you up there?
I was sweet 18 when I went into the seminary.
Father Albert was supposed to be a university chaplain, but he flunked his exams. And when he finally passed them, this New Yorker was told he was going to Jamaica.
I thought he meant Jamaica, New York. And I said, but we don't have a university there or school. He said, no. He said, I want you to go to Jamaica in the West Indies. And I said, thank you very much. I'm not called to be a missionary. I don't want to be a missionary. But then it hit me. God didn't want me in Norman, Oklahoma at a university. He wanted me in Jamaica. That I was sure of.
You all right? Thank God.
Father Albert chose to minister to the poorest neighborhoods of Kingston, Jamaica. Like this.
Well, you know I'm not into the whole Christian shebang, and I'm not into the missionary thing. But let me play another video to show you some of the work that he would have done in Western Kingston. A lot of people from Western Kingston would be fully aware of who Father Albert is and the many different work he did to assist those who government fail to pay attention to, those who government use in their circle of violence in order for control. This is something that we are well aware of.
Fences, that's protection.
Well, organized protection for these people.
That's right, in which they, help defend themselves. Because they know and they understand that when the shooting and when the fighting starts in the inner city, the resources to help them aren't always there.
I mean, there's killings almost every night around here, isn't there?
We range anywhere between 800 and 1,000 killings now a year.
Which is a lot for a small island. And most of those are in this very city, in these very communities.
In Kingston, yeah. The rest of the island is peaceful compared to this.
In his vocational schools, Father Albert is waging a battle to make kids from the worst slums employable.
Not bad, not bad.
And this Catholic priest is also waging a battle for their souls.
Keep it up. You can make it. Don't want you on the street. The street don't have anything to offer you, you know. Street don't have nothing to offer you. You got to get the skill, and then you get empowered. When you have a skill, you have power. You can direct your life. When you have skill, you can get ahead. All right, men.
What are the little miracles, the little everyday signs of hope that keep you motivated?
I think when, you know, a kid writes you a letter, got the job. I don't want anyone dependent on me. I want a kid to come back and say to me, thanks, I got the job now because I learned computering. Yeah. That's what I want. Yeah.
And it's working?
It's happening. I don't want to cry on camera.
But you get emotional. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Why? What does it mean to you?
It just... I think that what's so very important is to make people, give them their dignity.
Dignity and a future are the gifts Father Albert is trying to give to his students. And the giving goes both ways. Are you grateful for the life that you've been given, for the cards that you've been dealt? I mean, do you feel blessed?
If I died in an hour, I could only say thank you, Lord. It's been wonderful.
One of the questions we should ask ourselves, particularly in this local government election, has the living standard and the situation, the infrastructure of this community over 20 years ago when this reporting was done, has there been any or much changes? But I want you to also listen to Cliff Hughes' view at the time, young Cliff Hughes' view at the time, the young journalist who was featured in the report as well.
Living recycling what others consider trash.
The situation is really, really very difficult for these people. These are really the poorest of the poor in Jamaica. No one is this bad, I think.
It's a far cry from what you left, huh, back in the United States.
Well, when I was asked to come to Jamaica, I said I'd only come for 3 years, but you fall in love. You fall in love with the people, the challenge, the excitement, the risks. It all, you know, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Morning, Miss Vi. Miss Vi, long time no see. How is you?
Fine.
You all right?
God bless you.
God bless you. Come sit over here.
Part of Father Albert's mission is to care for the people that no one else wants to touch.
Miss Vi, this is your food here.
Thank you, Father.
We got all sorts of soup and porridge and rice and oil and everything.
Yes, Father. God
So the
bless
two of you can eat. Pops, you all right?
But charity isn't his main mission. He wants to help those living in Jamaica's slums fend for themselves.
He was a white man, not one of us, not looking like one of us, who came and said, I'm here to make a difference.
Cliff Hughes is one of Jamaica's most respected journalists, and he knows Father Albert's world all too well.
This is one of the toughest communities in Jamaica and the Caribbean, where guns bark virtually on a daily basis. He had to eyeball gunmen, toughies, the outcasts on the fringes of society, okay? And win their confidence, earn their confidence.
What happens if the police come in and see you? What they should be careful?
I'm a soldier in your army.
Be careful, you know. Be careful if they see you just like that. Trust me.
Mr. Brown is
What does Monsignor Albert do in the middle of this?
What Monsignor is concentrating on doing is to save that 12-year-old, that 13-year-old, so he doesn't end up in that gang or in that social milieu that says, I have to tote a gun to earn a bread.
Good morning, boys and girls.
When Father Albert first came to this neighborhood, The local school didn't have a roof, and the children weren't even learning how to read or write. But now, thousands of them get a proper education because of his efforts.
And finally, I'm going to play the last video for you with relation to the police and those communities. But imagine our elected representatives for our various communities use their budget to raise the living standard of communities and people's life.
Up to by everybody in the community. It's like the hope factor for a lot of people.
But giving hope costs money. And to bridge the divide between rich and poor, Father Albert preaches and collects funds from his well-off congregations.
We're celebrating a hungry child that had to be wrapped up in rags. It's so important for us to remember that it's more than writing a check. Though I want to make it perfectly clear. Well, I guess I don't have to, you understand? You want to rebuild here? We'll provide you the material, you do the work.
But what outraged Father Albert even more than the poverty here was that the gang leaders expected a cut of the money that he raised to help the people.
Have you ever, in all your dealings, had to give a cut to the Dons?
Never, no, I never would. No, as a matter of fact, the one or two times when my life was seriously threatened was when I refused to. I was building my largest center, and the fellow wanted 30,000 US as permission to build. And I said, no, I won't do that.
How did you convince the Don that you weren't going to pay him and he better not touch
The way I did it was because I told him that when he was going to get cornered or in trouble, I would be his best friend. I would be the only one that could get him in alive when the police started tracking him down. As long as they know you're a
In the inner city, Father Albert is often the only one who can mediate between the police, the gangs, and the communities they control.
Yes, the police are helpful people, right? So that's why you shouldn't worry to go in. You shouldn't worry to go in, man. They're not going to trouble you. Trust me.
It seems that in these inner cities, the people have no confidence in the police, and the police want nothing to do with these violent slums.
Every day they have to deal with the toughest side of society. Gangs in the inner cities that are, you know, as armed as the police are. Unfortunately, many of them see the community as the enemy. And this is the thing that we're trying to break down.
In all of Grants Pen, there's probably about 8,000 people. There's only about 30 of them that are bad.
8,000 volatile people.
No, man, no, man. Only about 30 that are bad people that you can't trust, that would hate you. The rest of the people, they're good, decent people. All they want is a job.
Janet Bailey, good evening and welcome. Delphi Campbell, first time seeing you on the chat. Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome. Imagine those inner city communities. For over 20 years, have there been any change? But finally, I want to speak tonight. Nicola Pitt, good evening and welcome. I want to tonight ask the Holy Father, Kenneth Richards, Archbishop Kenneth Richards, some questions. Monsignor Albert was helping a lot in Western Kingston. He was running a lot of home for the elderly, a lot of projects in communities across the Western Kingston area. Father Albert was quite a well-off man. Father Albert has assets. I want to ask Kenneth Richard, Archbishop, Upper Stella Maris, where is Father Richard, Father Albert's assets? Where, Ken Richards, is Father Albert's assets? How much land, Kenneth Richards, of members of your church who've died, you have sold, Kenneth Richards? The corruption of politics and religion. The corrupt of politics and religion when it got to do with the people and the people's wealth. Are you, Archbishop Kenneth Richards, continuing the work that Father Albert was doing across Western Kingston? What happened to the assets and the projects? The money of Father Albert Kenneth Richards. How much land have you sold? How many lands have you sold, Kenneth Richards? This man you see on the screen, Archbishop Kenneth Richards, is a very corrupt man. Very corrupt. Very finger-fearing. A man of the cloth. A man of God. We must be careful of these deceivers, whether they are in politics or they are in religion, because both are organizations that is invested in their economic advantage, and it's your purse, you the people, your purse that propel their economic laddering. You the people. You the people. Because people like Father Kenneth can get on a fit show any amount in the purple dress. Any amount in the purple dress. These are the people who hold us in contempt while politicians have their way with us. These are who hold us down while politicians violently rape us. Yes, the clergy. The clergy is the one who hold us down from the time of slavery. From the time of slavery, the clergy is the one who hold us down for the rest of them to rape us. It's time for us to wake up. Not just Jamaica, the people. Wake up. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in a quandary globally. We are waiting, as Marcus Garvey said, until our very backs are against the wall. Politicians, corrupt political leaders, and corrupt religious leaders continue to have their way with us. Corrupt politicians and corrupt political leaders continue to have their way with us. Wake up, Black people.
This is Global TV election campaign coverage. This is Global TV election campaign coverage. This is Global TV election campaign coverage.
Thank you very much for being here with us this evening and what would have been our Drive Time London Lunchtime Global program. However, you know, until the first week in March, we are doing our 2024 Jamaica this side. Thank you very much for being here this evening, and we are looking forward 11 o'clock tonight to bring you 2 interviews, one from West Portland, the other from East Portland. Thank you very much, and we will definitely see you later. And please do make sure, if you have not yet done so, subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the like button when you enter or when you are leaving. Paula Shelley, good evening. Thank you. Thank you. We will definitely see you all later. Goodbye and be well.